Hello, and welcome to the Tristan channel. And today I wanted to cover an article about sex, as in biological sex, right? So, as you've done before, I've done ones on gender and stuff like that, but this one I want to share because it's by a microbiologist as well. I mean, the ones I share are scientific. This is from a microbiologist, right? And it's titled, "Sex Isn't Binary, we should stop acting like it is." It's time for legislation and education to reflect sex as a spectrum with unlimited options. The way the US thinks about sex is wrong. Well, not just the US, but everyone is wrong. Or most people, sorry. Many people believe that biological sex is binary, either you're male or female. But as with many binaries, things are more complicated than they seem. Sex and gender, for example, are not the same. Sex is our biological, with what chromosomes, hormones, genes, sex organs, and secondary sex characteristics we have, while gender is how we think of our identity in the context of how norms function within our culture. Again, like I said in another video, because the thing is, people get upset about separating gender and sex. The thing is, though, that's a bit silly as well, because don't forget, sex has more than one use. It's not just about your physical position, as it were, but it's also a form of intimate contact. You know what I mean? If you look at the word sex in a dictionary, it has bigger, each word has a bigger description. It's not just sex is what you are at birth. Sex is also an act of physical intimacy. If it wasn't the case, we'd call it sexual intercourse all the time. We wouldn't say, oh, they're having sex, they're having sexual. No, I mean, we wouldn't shorten it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean, if it was the wrong use. But again, as I said in my other video, it's funny because when you think about it, or when you look at it as why they're separating it, is because it is. I mean, if you look at where the word comes from, gender, like I said in the other video, it means variety or kind. It comes from a word meaning that, so it doesn't actually has nothing to do with the body. You know what I mean? You can use it for animals, you can use it for objects. You know what I mean? But also, not that, it's like we decided to call, like I said, your penis and vagina is just a function. Yeah, it's just an organ. When we were developing our language, we looked at each other and went, hang on, you've got bits sticking out. You know what I mean? You got bits sticking out, I haven't got bits sticking out. And then when they formed society, or however it went, they went, okay, we'll call that woman, and we'll call this man. So they're labels. They're things that we invented. They were not like written on stone or some divine thing. You know what I mean? So it is a construct. How is a table a table? What makes a table a table? Who named it a table? If I sit on a table and call it a chair, who's to say it's not a chair? You know what I mean? It's a label. It's a construct. So, of course, it's separate. Understanding gender not as male or female, but rather as a spectrum, is a recent development for many Americans. What people seem to can't grasp is this spectrum thing. It's not been... The LGBT community didn't make this up. Science came to this determination. Scientists in gender research determined this whilst looking at, because this microbiology, for example, this is a microbiologist who wrote this article, because they looked at it on a micro level. They looked at it, investigated it, analysed it. It's like in one article I think I went over in a previous video. It's for example, if you look at the chart we usually get in textbooks is man, woman. It's M-shaped. But it's not that. It's actually a plateau and two bumps like hills, and in the middle you have intersex, because what they were going to do is actually officially declare intersex as a third gender, and which also they believed would benefit intersex people because it protect them from medical abuse or misuse. What's the term? Being mistreated. However, intersex people didn't want to be labelled as a third gender because some of them wanted to identify with the body they had. So an intersex person may be biologically a man but has the body of a woman, so they want to be, but was born in the body of a woman, but they would say they would rather be identified as a woman rather than intersex. You know what I mean? So that's why they haven't fully gone bang for the record. There's 3 genders, intersex being the 3rd, and it's a spectrum because you could be, predominantly male, physically, biologically, but you could be 3% intersex. You know what I mean? Because depending on what your chromosomes like, your chromosomes go like your different configurations and stuff. It hasn't been a simple transition. Every day people make countless decisions based on their sex and gender, some of which can provoke debate, like choosing which bathroom to use or fill out legal documents or competing in sports. Again, toilets and sport things is a blur. Yeah, I've done videos on that. It's just nonsense. Just drama, some picking holes and want to cause shit towards the trans community. The science is clear. Sex is a spectrum. Again, when I looked into it, they showed you the chart, and it shows that. So, the actual science shows that. Don't forget we got more. The thing is, problem is, people look in the past. The old charts that they showed you is what we're taught in primary school. I'm not saying people lying, but when people go, I've looked into this and all sorts of stuff, I'm kind of like, yeah, when was this document printed? In 1976? You know what I mean? Because people would misunderstand. When they say it's a lot more complicated than that, they misconstrued that. Because at the end of the day, this whole binary thing, like, basically, in one article it says about pseudoscience, when they said, there's an article called Stop Using, I think it's in the, should be one of the links down below. They said, stop using biology or, pseudoscience to attack trans people. Because it's like, when they have it as a binary, and they show, basically, when they give it to you when they teach us at school, they teach us just the importance of how the chromosomes work, and they put in that binary thing. They try and keep it tidy. In other words, we get the shortened version, just so they can teach us how important chromosomes are and how they work and stuff. However, things are not that binary or that simple. It's a lot more complicated because you just don't get XX and XY, because that's all we get taught in school. X, 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 Y. We don't get told, oh, but then you could get this, you can get that. You might get taught that if you get a degree. Because the thing is, I know people who got a degree in biology who will back this up. They've posted about it on before on the internet, and it's like, because they went to, one or two of them were trans, okay, people think, oh, that's a bit biased, but no, they went off with the intent to learn more about the actual science so they could understand what's going on in here and here. You know what I mean? The motives were not, they're not trying to prove, they were trying to understand. Big difference. But all the science, there's the way the science suggests, and it's like, and people just seem to ignore this. They just go, oh no, this evidence says this, the evidence says that, but it's not the case. It is a spectrum. If you actually look at the graph, it is a spectrum, because when it says it's complicated, people misunderstand that. It means it's not binary. There's a different facets and combinations of chromosomes that you can actually get, which will affect you in many different ways. Just like gender isn't binary, our biology isn't binary either. It too exists on a spectrum. In fact, many people's bodies possess combination of physical characteristics typically thought of as male or female. As one example, some people with androgen insensitivity have XY chromosomes, internal testes, and external female genitalia. Traits including hormone levels can also vary wildly both within and across sexes. I think basically these are known as intersex people. But because I have always said, kind of disproves, because there's also in joke of cloning. The irony is, because people say, oh, that won't work because that means your body will produce more estrogen and all this bollocks. Well, no. what they're finding is in the thing, and it kind of backs an idea that I've predestinedly worked out, is you and I are not black and white A. Say, for example, A is male, B is female, right? We are not black and white A and B. If you look more like your mum, that means you've got more of her genetics in you, yeah? Because also, don't forget, it's more than just fucking chromosomes. People are obsessed with chromosomes. Oh, chromosomes are the key. Woo! There's chromosomes, there's all kinds of things in your body. You know, there's all kinds of factors and stuff. Like genetics, I'm not saying chromosomes part of that, but there's loads of, it's not just chromosomes, there's loads of different things, But if you look more like your mother, then that means you have more, don't matter if you're born a man, it doesn't mean you're less of a man. It just means the implications are, or could be, I'm not saying it is what we'll find is the whole human race is intersex. It's just that by what degree? Yeah? We're a cocktail. Because technically we are a cocktail of our parents. I know, it sounds simpler than I'm thinking. Because it's like an in-joke. They said if you were 100, it's the same joke with cloning. If you're 100% of, say, your father, you would be an exact copy of your father. Or something to that effect. Although saying that, I noticed a mistake I made there myself, and that is your testicles don't define your gender. They don't. Doesn't what like this thing here. It's like saying a gender is a construct. But basically, just so I can try and get this point across simply, is you could still be, say, born a boy, but it's where do I put it? It's the thing is because people can't wrap their own heads around it. When I explain it, they're like, "Oh, that's stupid. It wouldn't work because otherwise you'll produce more estrogen." Well, it was nonsense. Well, no, estrogen and testosterone are overrated. If you look into it as well, I think I did a video on in my previous video explain that estrogen and testosterone is actually the levels they found are the same on women and men. Then the reason why they just found that out is because when you say, "Oh, I'm going to do testosterone experiments," they don't actually do the experiments on women in terms of like detecting how much they got in and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it does spike depending on your environment and your emotions, all kinds of different factors. But it's the wavy lines are not that far from each other. But to a degree, you do have female genes. If you look more like your mum, then you're going to have quite predominantly female genes in you. Whether that's true on a chromosomal level, we don't know until you get tested or until we explore that idea. Again, it's just a theory of mine, but it does explain a lot as well because, and all I can say is people go, that's impossible, but then you have intersex. Intersex are the extreme example of my theory. The fact that intersex people exist proved my theory is possible. And where they're going with the research, it's like, you could be free, you won't come up as intersex, but the thing is, it's like, intersex won't be seen as a weird thing, because if that's at the middle, right, and it pooms out like that way, so you've got male, female, intersex, then, you know what I mean, it still doesn't affect this side or that side, it just explains. It's an interesting way of explaining why you have certain traits. I mean, oddly enough, I'm pretty sure that's what they taught us in biology anyway. The reason why you have more of your mum's genes in you, hence why you look, you know what I mean? It'd be interesting to see if also if it causes the transgender thing, where it's, if you're more like your mum, I don't know. So it's fascinating. It's kind of different ways to go for it, but that's not my theory. My theory is that I reckon we're all cocktail. I reckon we're all intersex to a degree. I reckon we're a cocktail of things, because otherwise if everything was black. The thing is, if everything chromosomally, biologically, or if everything we saw, if it was the dead center black and white, you would look like your dad if you're a male, or if you know what I mean. So it doesn't quite work black and white as we think it all does. You know what I mean? I hope you can understand what I'm getting at. But yeah, but people people go, oh yeah, no, I do understand what you get. It's like, well, no, they don't, because you come out saying stupid like, oh no, but no, you end up producing Western if you're more like your mum. It's like, don't be stupid. So anyway, I just thought I had that in there. I've put it in the other video, but yeah, the intersex research is quite interesting and stuff like that. And they're not rare. People go, oh, it's a rare abnormality. No, it isn't. It seems rare because they changed the name. The name intersex is new, but to that category of people, but they're not new. Anyway. That's why it's important to study history, because intersex people were seen as divine and stuff like that in ancient cultures, because the gods are intersex basically. Anyway. But people who fall outside of what's considered normal face discrimination. And who decides what's normal? We do. Society does. We say, oh, it goes against the laws of nature. Nature does what it wants to do. It doesn't do what you want it to do. Yeah, we don't demand how nature works. Nature does its own thing. You know what I mean? Oh, it goes against the laws of nature. No, your interpretation, your laws of nature. Nature doesn't do what you want it to do. You know what I mean? It's mental. But people who fall outside of what's considered more physical discrimination, take South African runner Caster Semenya, sorry if I butchered that name, who was recently the subject of a ruling that ordered her to lower her naturally high testosterone levels to compete with other female runners, even though studies have shown that because testosterone levels are so highly variable, there's overlap between the natural testosterone levels of men and women. Also, the irony is, again in my one, the real issue isn't trans people competing, they're using it as to distract from the fact that women are being mistreated, and also doping. Because oddly enough, when a lot of people train, women will train, they'll usually take testosterone boosters. But then again, the irony is testosterone doesn't give you muscles. I've learned this in doing bodybuilding, because I was trying to cheat it basically, because I couldn't be asked to put effort in it. I thought, how do I get, without using steroids, how do I get this other thing? You actually lose testosterone when you move and stuff like that. It's to do with recovery and kinds of things like that, if that makes sense. Something like that. I probably worded that wrong, but it's not. It's nothing to do with building muscle mass. That's something else. I can't remember what it's called, because you get different supplements for that. But yeah. So you could stick testosterone in someone's fucking body and it wouldn't do fuck all. You know what I mean? It probably means you probably get less tired, but it won't make you a super soldier. Students are often accurately taught that all babies... There you go, this is the bit I was on about earlier. Students are often inaccurately... Don't forget, this is a microbiologist. She knows what the fuck she's talking about. Students are often inaccurately taught that all babies inherit either XX or XY sex chromosomes, and that having XX chromosomes make you female while XY makes you male. In reality, people can have XXY or XYY or XXXX or other combinations. Now, of chromosomes. Sorry, I'll finish off. Or all of which can result in a variety of sex characteristics. All of which... Oh, hang on. Wait. Whoa, wow. Wow! As Christopher Walken would say. This is the point I'm getting at. All of which... So if you look more like your mum... if you look more dominantly like your mum, even though you're a boy, that could mean you could have... I don't know. I'm not sure which combination out of these you would choose, but you could be XXY or an XYY. I don't know, XY is female. So yeah, you could be XXY. Is why you probably look more like your mum. You see what I'm getting at with that? You see now what I'm getting at? Oh no, but you'll produce more estrogen. No, you fucking wouldn't. It just means you've got XXY, not just XX. It doesn't affect you that much. You know what I mean? It just makes, gives you physical attributes that are either close to your mum or dad. But it still doesn't mean you're black and white A and B like, say, the Bible does. The thing is, people don't understand this well, is religion has had a big impact on science throughout the years. Science couldn't go against religion, otherwise you'll get burnt at the stake. Yeah? A lot of the gender binary does come from the Bible. This whole idea of Adam and Eve. Before Christianity got its ugly mitts on the world, all, pre-Victorian Edwardian days and things like that, there was like 5 genders, or there's more than one gender. You had two-spirited people, you had androgynous people. You know what I mean? There was more than one gender. And it didn't even have labels for it. They just looked at them like normal people, like, "Oh, how you doing?" Some cultures, they worshipped them, or they got given positions like temples because the gods were seen as androgynous beings. So, you know what I mean? Right. But this is what I'm getting at. So, all of which can result in a variety of sex characteristics. So, you may have a face like your mum. You look, feature-wise. It doesn't mean you're not less of a man or a, you know what I mean? It doesn't make you less of what you are perceived to be born as. You know what I mean? That's what I find interesting. And the thing is, bear in mind, like this theory I had, I came up with this formulating in my brain before getting into this. Just sitting by myself and picking things together, putting things together, or picking things apart, going, that Bible doesn't make sense. And like I said, a lot of it is political or religious influence. You know what I mean? So it's like... But the fact that you can have that combination of chromosomes proves my theory. I'm not the only one who has had that idea or found it. You know what I mean? I don't like being right, but... It's also true that some people with XX chromosomes develop typical male reproductive systems, and some people with XY chromosomes develop typically female reproductive systems. See, the other thing that annoys me is people like try and fight against these ideals. What's wrong with variety? There's beauty in variety and diversity. Nature, again, like about natural law of things, nature creates random weird shit. There are animals that are weird. Let alone humans. We're still animals. That's what makes me laugh. People think we're not animals. Nature can affect us like it does animals. You'll get a variety of animals that are different combinations of animals. It's like there's a lizard that lives in a cave, or that's related to a newt. It's blind. It's got frills in it. Probably know what you're talking about. But it's blind, but it does all these other incredible things. Yeah? Nature just creates weird stuff. There's a variety, it's not weird. We think it's weird because it's like, wow. But what I mean here is what it does the same thing. So while there's variety, diversity in nature, because that's what nature does, it does the same thing. It just goes, woo! And I think there's a lot of, don't forget, life is random. So, you know what I mean? You see what I'm getting at? So why is it wrong? Why is it horrific to embrace the idea that it's happening in humans? It's ludicrous because we're animals. We're affected by the laws of the weird aspects of nature, just like everything else has. There is no laws of nature. Nature does its own thing. Nature just is. Yeah. So that just is can affect us as well as it can a skunk or no, skink, sorry, as a lizard, all these different things. Oh yeah, but we're mammals. Yeah, but there's some really weird fucking mammals out there, for God's sake. Excuse me French. Anyway, I think as humans do weird stuff by themselves, let alone what nature decrees. It's like, seriously, we cut down. It's like, people have a go, or make fun of Muslim cultures or Arabic cultures because they wash their back. Say, for example, I know it's a bit gross to detail, but it actually makes sense. They wash their backsides of water. They've been doing it for decades. All right? That's actually a lot more hygienic than what we do, because as scientists have found out, and these cultures have known this for years, that your bum may seem clean, but it isn't. What toilet paper does is it spreads it around so thinly that it looks like it's gone, but you've got a thin layer of shit still there. Albeit you can't see it, hence why you get itchy bum. And that's why we invented wet wipes for the toilet, flushable wet wipes. Even though I wouldn't recommend it because it has into the environment, so put it in a separate bin or something. But that's why. But these cultures knew that for years. And yet, for some reason, we thought it would be a clever idea to cut down a tree, make it into paper, just so we can clean our bums. And look at all the weird things that we do. It's like, if you truly, It goes against the laws of nature. Oh, so does a person flying in a bloody aeroplane. Because by that same stupid logic, oh, surely if man was meant to fly, he would grow wings. You know what I mean? It's the same, you know what I mean? Mindset. Ugh. Anyway. So what's wrong with diversity? So there's trans people, intersex people, non-binary people. Fuck. What's wrong with that? Nature is about diversity and variety. You know what I mean? Embrace the beauty of it, for fuck's sake. What's wrong? It's not hurting you, is it? It's not preventing you from living your life, paying your bills. It's like, you know, that's what makes me laugh. Most rational people couldn't care. They just pay. All they care about is whether they can put food on the table and pay their bills. So all you people attacking or picking out trans people, you must be living, you know, or having a dig at trans people. You must really have a good life then. Seriously, if you've got the luxury to sit there and go, wow. Most people are thinking, how the fuck am I going to get through to tomorrow? Sorry. Later on, during typical embryonic development, embryos with the SRY gene, and people keep on negating the importance of the SRY gene. It's like, oh, but I've heard that one before. It's like, you clearly haven't because you don't know the importance of it. Because that's the thing that triggers whether or not you get a penis or a vajayjay. So I like calling it vajayjay. So usually found on the Y chromosome that develops testes, seminal vesicles, and epidermis, vas deferens, and the penis. If the embryo has a functional WNT4 gene found on chromosome 1 and not SRY gene, its reproductive system instead develops into ovaries, a uterus, fallopian tubes, and a vagina. That's what I was missing in the last article I read about this. Because I wasn't sure if that gene triggers or not, that causes the which direction the mutation goes. Because men are essentially a mutation of, you know, I'm going to use the binary language, but men are essentially a mutation of women. You start off genderless in the womb, and then a mutation then occurs. If you think that's bollocks, all I can say is this: the colour of your eyes is a mutation. The colour of your hair is a mutation. Odd that is also, they made that point out in X-Men films. There you go, fancy diagram, testosterone and estradiol. A single chemical reaction separates testosterone, the male hormone, from the estradiol, the female hormone. The irony is, though, females are male. Yeah. But sometimes people end up with intersex traits, often referred to in medical settings as differences of sex development, DSD. People may choose to identify their sex as male, female, or intersex with DSD, although many intersex advocates argue against the use of DSD as it implies that they need to be fixed. You know what I mean? It's like saying you're a born boy. We can't have boys. We've got too many boys on this planet. We'll fix you. You know what I mean? That's probably a bad analogy, but you know what I mean? In other words, you don't need to fix on. Although people may argue, oh, yeah, but trans people are broken. No, you don't need to fix on who's broken in the sense of, like, if fate, or, you know, if nature, yeah, I could use that term, if nature determined that you're going to be intersex, you don't need fixing. Now, yes, nature may have put you in a male body, but then again with these different chromosome factors, there could be a variable, and that's the other thing as well. All these different combinations of chromosomes could also be an influencing factor on how you feel. You know what I mean? About which could lead to being transgender, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So that could also explain it. Because people are trying to suss out what causes people to be transgender. There could be many factors, not just psychological, but there could be chromosomal as well. Because it's like, oh, you know what I mean? You're here. Oh, I mean, you can. You know, there's nothing wrong with a man feeling feminine, but you know what I mean? When they genuinely go, oh, hang on, oh, you know, something's not. I can't act. I don't know what it's like to be trans, so I can't act it. But anyway, when you feel, hang on, you know what I mean? You know, like quantum leap. Oh my lord, hey, all sick. It's not right. Something doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like, Sam, I've been teleported into a body of a woman. You know what I mean? Or a man. You know what I mean? Sorry. I'm being silly and trying to simplify these ideas, because when you look, they actually seem big, but they are simple in terms of understanding. When you put it all together, it's like, oh, yeah. But it's hard to explain a very long idea. But anyway, I'm waffling. For example, XX embryos with a SRY gene will develop as typical males, while XY embryos lacking the SRY gene will develop as typical females. There are also other genetic variations in a number of genes that can alter hormone levels, resulting in a reproductive system that is neither strictly male nor female. These changes can cause someone's reproductive system to not match their chromosomes. In the US, when a child is born with ambiguous genitalia, doctors commonly recommend reconstructive surgery to align a child's anatomy more closely to typical male or female anatomy. So in that case, where people go assigned at birth, they go, oh, they're guessing. No, they're not guessing. Assigned means given. So there's nothing wrong with that term. In this case, it would definitely be a guess. It'd be like, what do we do? And also, I suppose they ask parents, do you want a boy or a girl? It's very high, you know. It's not quite right. I mean, I didn't mean a bit so very vulgarly, but I try to make light of the subject and make it light and entertaining. But anyway, it's been estimated that babies with intersex traits account for up to 2%. See that? Okay, this is about intersex. I do apologise. But I was thinking, you know what I mean, in general, be like, you know, what do you do in those situations? But obviously, this is leading to the topic of intersex. And again, the problem is, if you're intersex, they try to fix you when there's nothing wrong with you. It's been estimated that babies with intersex traits account for up to 2% of live births, which, with this kind of surgery being performed in about 0.1 to 0.2% of live births, even though evidence suggests this can cause physical and psychological harm. Well, yeah, because you're trying to rectify something that's not a problem. Laws and social attitudes can make it difficult for intersex, transgender and non-binary people to receive adequate healthcare services, participate in sports and be protected from discrimination. A complicating problem is that doctors can lack experience treating bodies that are neither male or female, making it harder for them to understand their patients. Understand their patients' needs. This is not only true for intersex people, but for transgender and non-binary patients. Again, that's what makes it laugh as well. If you're going to get a doctor on a TV show, don't get some doctor who's never dealt with trans people, or you have specialists, right? For example, if a psychologist can't determine what's wrong with you, they'll send you to a neuroscientist and he'll scan your brain to see if you've got damage or if there's something there that's indicating the problem. Just because someone's a doctor have a basic idea of something, but not the whole, because they have not been involved in that department, as it were. It's like science physicists, right? Physicists, not all physicists know quantum mechanics, yeah? You have specialised scientists within different departments that have more insight, yeah? So this is why you get in gender doctors or people who do gender therapy, because they'll have more insight than just your typical doctor. So using a typical doctor as a reference on, or knowledge, or using them as is this true, how does this work, and no good getting them on programs or asking them. They only have the basic, like previously said before above, they have that basic textbook thing. They don't know the complicated stuff. They don't know the bigger picture when it comes to, some do, depends on what they did at university, but not all of them are going to know that. And that's why you get specialists. That's why if you're a transgender person, you don't just go, that's what you see a doctor, and your doctor probably can do the prescriptions and stuff like that, but you tend to go to a gender clinic. This is true not only for intersex people, but for trans people and non-binary patients as well, some of whom may be taking hormones so that their bodies more closely align with their gender identities. Some of these patients may not be seeking affirming medical interventions and just want their pronouns respected. Both physical and psychological harm can be caused by the medical enforcement of a sex binary, making it harder for people to seek the medical help that they need in future. To be fair, your physical sex should be just left out of medical treatment altogether, in terms of to address a problem. You know what I mean? It's like just be sex blind, and be gender blind. Just go, okay, what's the problem? Oh, I've got a pain here. I've got a pain there. You know what I mean? I know certain pains in that are different. You know, if it's a period pain or pregnancy pain, if it's complications. But you know what I mean, within reason. But what I'm saying, you shouldn't go, oh, that's because you're typically that. You know what I mean? It should. You know what I mean? That shouldn't affect your judgment, if it makes sense. Harmful approaches to sexual traits carry over to gender because our society often thinks of sex and gender as interchangeable. Laws and social attitudes can make it difficult for intersex, transgender, and non-binary people to receive adequate healthcare services, participate in sports, or protect discrimination. That's what she quoted above. The idea that gender or sex are binary harms everyone by stigmatizing traits that lie outside of what society considers normal. That's also, this is the thing also as well. This is more than to do with transgender people, because I think one non-binary person said about feminism and stuff like that. It's more about how people can express themselves. Why can't a woman wear trousers? You know, if a woman can wear trousers, why can't a guy wear skirts? I hate to split hairs, but isn't a kilt a skirt? Couldn't you actually say that? I mean, I know it's a kilt. A kilt is a type of skirt that men wear. It's a skirt. Oh, that's acceptable because it's a kilt. It's still a bloody skirt, no matter which way you shoe shine it or shoe polish it. When men can be feminine, why can't men be feminine? It all comes back down to not just transgender people. It's also this whole thing of this is what typically a man is and what typically a woman is, and that's the way it is. That's how it should be, and that's how they should behave. That's how it should be seen. Yeah? You can't express yourself. Stop acting feminine, you big girl's blouse. You know, all that toxic masculinity and all that shit. It's all integral. It's all integral. So by forcing this stuff on trans people, you're screwing yourself over. Because you can't be soft, you can't be feminine or compassionate or, you know, sensitive or whatever shit. You know what I mean? Because you're creating a situation where you boxed everyone in. You'll get slapped around, you get smacked to face. Man up. I may be oversimplifying it, but you get the gist, you know what I mean? But anyway, changing attitudes and social structures to recognise sex as a spectrum is a daunting task, ain't it just? But it is possible. To make real change, we need to both public education about biological sex spectrum, as well as policy changes. We should ban surgeries on intersex people without their consent and reinstate the Obama-era interpretation of Title IX to enact laws that specifically protect those who are intersex, transgender, or non-binary. See, this is what makes it laugh as well. People go, oh, there's laws pandering to transgender people. You must respect their gender now, because otherwise you get in trouble. No, that's bollocks. Excuse me French. It's nonsense. We're in UK alone, we are number 4 on LGBT rights. Also, there's been protests going on lately because everyone apart from trans people has been excluded from the conversion therapy. So the trans people are still on the list of people who can be given conversion therapy or forced to have conversion therapy. Yeah, in America, altogether, there's about 250 bills that don't work in their favour. There's no law that benefits or panders. Well, apart from this basic one, the discrimination, which comes basically it's added onto the hate speech ones. You know, the laws that protect gay people. They've added the the trans gender people on it. So there are some reasonable law, useful laws that protect you from discrimination and stuff like that, but they're not actual ones that are, you know what I mean? There's no draconian laws that make you do this in order to make the trans community happy or anything. It's nonsense. That's just right-wing garbage that's been cooked up from the Bible Belt in mostly America. And the problem is we like to copy America as well, so trends take over. Not against America, but you know what I mean? Even Americans know that there's some, usually, it's like you can just go to hell for just wearing a different colour. But you know what I mean? So yeah, anyway. But it's like, so no one in the government's pandering to trans people. may publicly say they are to win elections, but they haven't. There's 250 bills in America altogether that are against making it, hard for trans people. Oh, but you must respect their gender because you get trouble now. You have to respect people's gender. You can't have your own opinion. No, you can. Sorry, you can. I mean, some people have been fired from their jobs, but to be fair, it depends what job you're in. If a job's about diversity, if they believe in diversity, it's just like the church. If you work for the church and they don't accept, if they're horrible people, or they say they don't accept Muslims, you can't have Muslims in your church. You may not like it, but you have to abide by their rules. And not only that, with to be fair, in any workplace, you're meant to leave your personal opinions at home. Your political luggage, emotional luggage, you're meant to leave that at home. You're not really meant to take it to work with you. It's hard, don't get me wrong, it's hard, but yeah. I mean, some things you can talk about, obviously, like things like Ukraine, you can talk about that sort of thing. Certain issues you can talk about. If you're a white supremacist, it's not a good idea to talk about it at a place that's about diversity. But to be fair, at the end of the day, you still can have an opinion. It's like there's people being dismissed from their jobs and have appealed and won the case because the judge has gone, well, everyone's entitled to an opinion. No one's taking away to have a right to have an opinion. It's bollocks. It's just people. That's what makes it laugh. People could say, I don't read the media and trust the media. It's like, but this crap is coming from the mainstream media. It's just drama and nonsense. In terms of, we're behind in England on the LGBT rights. In America's even worse. The doctor's office, which is ironic, we're supposed to be the advanced cultures of the world. The doctor's office is often the first place people learn about being intersex, usually when it pertains to themselves or a child. If, instead of recommending that intersex children be raised as either male or female, doctors educate patients and parents about the sex spectrum, instead of saying, oh, you should be fixed, or lying to them, because some of them have been lying, saying you've got a tumour. It's not a tumour, it's testes, like you've got a tumour here or something. Or it's early stage cancer in where your womb is. No. It's basically because some intersex people, women, because some women get born instead of ovaries, they get born testes. And doctors will be like, that's not right. Now, finding a reason to remove it, so they tell them it's cancerous. You've got cancer in your ovaries. And they try to remove your ovaries when you find out later that you didn't have ovaries to begin with, you had testes. Sick things like that, it's disgusting. So that's why they need to educate their patients and tell them about this thing. We need to basically, even down to the village doctor needs to be updated, on the science. It would help people feel accepted in their bodies and change attitudes about what's normal. What is normal? You can't define what's normal. What we think is normal is different, unique to each person. So the whole idea of, oh, it's not normal. Trans people are not normal. If you think that, that's your opinion. I have no gripe. I accept them. I have friends who are trans. I consider them family. But it's also important to add similar education, because people go, oh, then that's it. Then you're biased. Well, no. At the end of the day, I don't tolerate bullshit. I will separate bullshit. I will separate the fact from bullshit. And the thing is, I hate people being bullied. I don't like bullies. I was bullied as at school. I don't like bullies. I don't like discrimination. It's disgusting. And the other thing is, my grandfather fought in World War II to stop the Nazis. A lot of our grandfathers, a lot of people fought in Germany. And some of the things that were on the list of diabolical things was discrimination against this, and you put them all in camps. If we're not careful, we're going to go down that way. There's an irony to all this. It's like, trans people are not normal. They said that in Germany. And the irony is, most people think that trans people are not normal. You should look at their porn history. Like Alex Jones. I did a video on that. But it's also important to add similar education to traditional sex ed in the classroom. Now, I don't think they should. I do agree they shouldn't teach it to you. Mind you, they shouldn't treat. Mind you, this thing's there because, again, it's funny. They blame it on trans people. Oh, it's so trans. They go, did you know it's disgusting now? They're teaching gender to little kids. No, they made it a part of sex education in schools. The problem is sex education itself has been lowered down in terms of what age they should teach it as. has nothing to do with transgender people. It's not the transgender's fault. It's because they decided to take sex education and teach it earlier. That's the real problem. That's the real issue. You should be going, don't teach them that, teach them later. I mean, I didn't get taught it later anyway. Actually, if anything, don't teach sex education to kids. Shall I tell you why? Have you seen all the different, like, diseases you can get? You know, like genital warts and stuff like that. All the sexually transmitted diseases you can get. That'd put you right off, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? Maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's why they're doing it. It's to put you off of going around having, like preteen sex. It's like, no, I love you, but we'd better not do it. Not because it's wrong, but because I don't want to get genital warts. You know what I mean? Well, I don't want to make a joke of it, but I mean, it's like... But yeah, I mean, seriously, some of the photos, they'll give me nightmares. Blue waffle. Don't Google it. Okay. But it's also important to add similar education to traditional sex ed in the classroom. Simply teach about the spectrum of sex can begin to break down stigma. You don't have to give them all these different things. Just say, sex is on a spectrum, that's why we have people living in the world like trans, non-binary, this and that and the other. Simple. You don't have to go into it. Just explain, you know, it's like basically if you're a parent and your kid goes, Mummy, why is that man kissing that other man? You don't go, oh, because they're gay or they're... You know, I don't want to say that word, it's horrible. And that's wrong. You go, because they're in love. Simple. You don't have to be awkward. It doesn't have to be awkward. Mummy, why is that man kissing that man? Because they're in love. Anyway. Currently, discrimination based on sex and gender is widespread, ain't it just? For example, sorry, I keep adding comments at the end, but ain't it just? For example, the language used in legal documents like licenses and passports often conflates sex and gender, and in many areas of life, the law offers protection only for binary sex genders. It's getting dark. Lights won't... No, I switched off by the thing now. Never mind. Still got enough light, good. Right. God, pardon me. Even when certain states like California have acted progressively and enabled people to choose non-binary as a gender marker on their driver licenses, the federal government has don't do that, don't load. Oh, I need to open the link mine. The federal government has been slow to catch up. This leaves people vulnerable in many ways, including the workplace, house market, and healthcare. Oh yeah. Oh God, sorry. I had Coca-Cola. I want to throw this one in as well. There's a stupid moronic thing on. Oh, because this woke transgender shit is destroying the world. It's destroying society. It's bringing down society. There are places within Scandinavian countries, and European countries that have already done for this. They've already made these things happen. And guess what? The world hasn't come to an end. Life has carried on as normal. Everyone is just getting on doing their thing. Why can't we do that here? Now, yes, not everyone, obviously not everyone's saying no, but there are still problems that's been created by the system, and you still got arseholes. The problem is people tend to get followers, and some of these followers are decent people. They shouldn't be tainted. So I think it's also, everyone's entitled to right to opinion, but they still need to be aware of me. It still helps to. There's nothing wrong with receiving information. Information is good. Learning is good. Learning new things is good. So, what could just give them information, and people, they're not trying to force you or convert you. But you know what I mean? It's why I don't see what. There's more important issues than getting upset about trans people and all these other things. It's just so sad. So I find yourself a bloody hobby.
Oh, they're forcing me to accept their mental condition. They're forcing me to accept their genders. Oh, boo, 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 boo.
Take your Bible and stick it up your candy ass. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, seriously, you need to get a life. It's like, I've been in many situations where people just sat there ranting about this shit, whether it be someone on TV or on a show or in a person. And I'm like, you people need to get a life. Go and find yourself a hobby. Seriously. It's like, oh yeah, it's really bad. They're really knocking on your front door going, accept my gender. Get a life. It's like, if it bothers you that much, you need to go back and your life must be really boring. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? There are more important things than worrying about what transgender people are doing. You know what I mean? Seriously. Vegans, I've got anything personally against vegans, but vegans cause more shit than transgender people. Why are you not banging on about them? They go around sabotaging farms and shouting angrily at people and calling you murderer. They produce more. They throw abuse at you. Transgender people are just going, please respect me. Please just let me be me. They're not going, oh, you. You know what I mean? Germany also allows a third sex designation, but only if the person is born with intersex traits. Again, gets back to, oh, that's why I did a video on this actually, yeah, as well, because that's what I mean. That's what's getting back. As I was talking about earlier, is German research. One of their departments did it. This is why Germany has a third sex designation, because intersex, even though intersex people don't want it, because like I said, that comes down to that problem with the gender binary as well. Because even though you're born, say, a boy, but you identify as a woman, it's like you don't want to be put down as a boy, do you? So if you're an intersex woman, but you feel you want to connect more with the actual chassis, as it were, so you could be born, your skeleton is male, your DNA is male, and your testes, but the outside shell of you is female, biologically female, and you want to connect to that female side. You don't want to be called intersex, you want to be called a woman, just like a trans woman wants to be referred to as a woman. You know what I mean? That same issue, that same problem. But officially, this is ironic. This is why it's on the spectrum. If you look at the chart now, the actual real chart, as it were, because they know about this. Actually, they know about this for years. The chart isn't man woman. It's man woman. There's a plateau and there's a line that goes up, and that line in the middle is intersex. And because technically it is a third gender, that's why Germany have got the third sex designation. Though there are a few countries that allow for identification as a third sex, they do not necessarily offer legal protection of this third sex. Many, for instance, don't have laws that prevent medically unnecessary surgeries from being performed on intersex people with their consent. Just creating a new box to fit people in doesn't necessarily solve the problem. Again, going back to the different dilemmas and stuff. You know what I mean? But I can see why they did it, because it's like they need protection. To truly put an end to sex and gender-based discrimination, we need legislation that considers sex as a spectrum with unlimited options. Also, there was this thing about, was it money? People were saying, oh yeah, but it was a paedophile who came up with this thing, and it's like, well, no. The whole discussion of gender and sex was been going on decades before money came about. He also wanted to treat sex as one thing in terms of its treatment, which doesn't kind of work. Otherwise, it's like, oh, you got your hormones level off, you're pregnant, but I'm a man. You know what I mean? So you can't. Probably not how he termed it, but anyway. But it's like, it was actually John Stoller, that actually officially cemented it or separated it, but it's been an ongoing thing. Which is funny, because people don't know that fact. They give all the credit to money. It's like, oh, this paedophile, this person who abuses patients. It's like, really? People like nitpick, but yeah, I hate to break it to you, it wasn't money. It was actually John Stoller. And before money and John Stoller, it was being discussed for decades. I think a woman. Actually, no, it wasn't a woman. It was a Frenchman, but I actually thought it was a woman because the name was very feminine. So, I do apologise to you, sir. I can't remember his name, but I do apologise to him. Anyway, but it's been discussed for like ages. But But the irony is it never was anyway. This is the funny thing. It never has been. Gender and sex have always been separate because gender has nothing to do with the body. A table is a gender. It's a gender of interior decoration. Yeah? Because gender comes from a Latin word meaning kind or variety. So if someone's gender is non-binary, that would translate in its old Latin as in the non-binary kind or the non-binary variety. Which actually makes sense. Actually makes perfect sense in English, doesn't it? They're of the non-binary variety. They're just the trans variety. They're of the male variety. They're of the female variety. You know what I mean? So we also need laws to specifically protect people with non-binary sexes and genders with discrimination in areas like healthcare settings, the workplace, and housing. The science is clear. The science is clear. Sex is a spectrum. Yet the solution to the misunderstanding of sex doesn't end with scientists. We also need better public education and structural changes to recognise and protect people and their biology. Because the other thing is also, during the Trump administration, the other problem of forcing the binary thing as well. Just because trans people are real, some moron decided that you must prove you're male, or must prove you're a woman, or something to that effect. So you basically so basically really dodgy people could do dodgy things to you in the name of science just to test whether or not you're a man or woman. And that was done during the Trump administration. So it's just there's ludicrous levels to this. But anyway, so again, yeah, I thought I'd just share this article with you and add my. And I waffled through it a bit. I do apologise, but I want to add my key bits in. I've done videos on this before, and it's getting very tiring to do. But yeah, molecular biology. Molecular biologist Lisa Brusman, 2019. These people know what they're talking about. Leave it to the experts, yeah? Don't read some shit and go, I'm just going to ignore what that expert says. It's always been bad, right? It's like, what's the point of studying this if you're not going to listen to these people? They know their shit. This is why they're trying to that's why they've separated it. That's why they're trying to sort this shit out. But the thing that's funny is, I've read articles from old biologists, like the OG biologists, and they say the same thing. It's actually been quite known for a very long time, because it's not black and white. It's not A and B like we think it is. Again, the A and B, the simplistic version of this is the way it is, this is the way it is, and this is the way it is. No, that's the simplistic. Right, I can't stress this enough. This is the numpty version, the stupid version they teach us at school, just to get across just how important chromosomes are. It's not necessarily how they work and what happens. It's just the basics, the basic thing. But that's just a little tip on the iceberg, yeah? But I know people who've got a degree in biology who will back everything this article says. So, yeah. So, anyway, just want to share this article and you know, being as it'd be a bit boring if I'd read it, it'd be, yeah, so I want to share my own thoughts with it, but stuff like that. But yeah, I've done videos now. I'm getting really tired of doing videos. But yeah. Anyway, let me know if you found this insightful. And if you like the video, hit like. If you haven't already subscribed, then please do, and I'll love you forever. And as always, the link to this article was in the thingamajig below, and with some other useful links. And until the next time, take care. Bye-bye.